G'day mate, and welcome to part 1 of my 3-part series where I show you how to tame the big 3 wilderness bosses Artio, Calvarion, and Spindle, while using their unique environments and attacks to your advantage to destroy absolutely everyone, make some easy money, and have a good time. Starting off with Artio. To kick things off, I'll cover everything you need to know, from the requirements to different gear and inventory setups, as well as some vital tips and tricks for those new to PKing. I'll go over these in detail in this video and quickly touch on any differences in the part 2 and 3 Calvarion and Spindle videos. Firstly, to access the boss lairs, all you need is completion of the medium wilderness achievement diaries. For these you'll need the skill levels on screen. However, within the boss lairs there is a 2-second teleport timer that will prevent instantly teleporting and will be interrupted with any action. But this timer can be removed by completing the hard wilderness diaries requiring the skills on screen, as well as completion of Death Plateau and Mage Arena 1. Also, the entrances to the boss lairs have a right click option to peek, which will let you know if anyone is inside. Use of this requires 20 kill count of that specific boss. Other than that, the only thing you'll need is 85 magic to be able to use Teleblock with a combat level between about 80 to max with reasonable stats, but it's all good if your account isn't fully built for PKing. Because the best part about PKing at these bosses is that if you play things well, they'll be able to put out a massive amount of damage alongside you, meaning that you don't need to risk a lot to get easy kills. A 500k Mystic and Black Dragonite setup is enough to get the job done, but the better the gear, the better the chances. Particularly for your magic gear and weapons, as most kills depend upon landing your teleblocks and freezes, as well as being able to outlast or knock your opponent out. I'll showcase a few basic gear setups for those new to PKing, but there are plenty of different options for different account builds, so feel free to change it up to suit your own style and risk. The first upgrades we should be looking to make are in our weapons and magic gear. If you're PKing on a budget, the Smokestaff, Ballista, and Armadillo Gourd Sword as a +1 is a good cheap setup offering a high damage potential. Also, throw in a Mage Arena 2 cape and a Tome of Fire for a nice boost to your magic for only about a 3.5 mil risk. If you're only hunting down PVMers, then I'd recommend the 5 mil set on screen. Upgrading our magic armor to Bloodbuck and range to Blessed Dragonite or Corils and switching to the Dragon Crossbow will make us much more consistent and more than powerful enough to wear our target down before taking them out. However, if you're looking to step it up and take on other PKers, the next upgrade should be based around defense, as well as either accuracy for an Outlast setup or high damage potential for a KO setup. Introducing a shield switch is by far the best slot to upgrade first. Either a ranging shield such as an Odium Ward to help keep momentum and prevent freezes, or a tank shield such as a Dragonfire shield to reduce your opponent's ranged and melee accuracy. If going for an Outlast setup, you can also switch your +1 to something like the Ancient Gourd Sword, and if going with a KO setup, you can throw in a Fire or Infernal Cape and introduce a second special attack weapon to hit some nasty combos. The Voidwaker paired with the Abyssal Dagger makes it easy to catch your opponent off prayer, or something like the AGS to instant G-Maul can instantly delete your opponent with a bit of lucky RNG. If you don't mind upping your risk, the Amulet of Fury and Serphelm are the easy choice for their slots, and for your ring upgrade, the Lightbearer or Suffering are great for Outlast fights, while the Brimstone or Berserker ring are great when going for a KO. In this gear we pack a serious punch for about a 20 mil risk. Beyond that, there are plenty of other upgrades you can make, such as Arms and a Toxic Staff to the Zarak Crossbow and Dragonfire Ward, or completely different sets like Void or Crystal. But if you're intending to PK in the lairs, it's really not worth risking too much until you know what you're doing, since with all the extra damage from the bosses, it can get pretty dangerous. Now over to the inventory. To start off, we'll need some runes for Teleblock, Entangle, and our offensive spell, and be sure to use items like sacks, tomes, combination runes, and staffs to your advantage. Most notably a locked rune pouch, which can bring your rune space down to just 2 inventory slots. Next we'll want a Stamina and Anti-Venom for longer trips, and optionally a Royal Seed Pod for a one-click teleport out, and Mithril Seeds to be able to move a tile when frozen. To finish off, we'll want the usual ranging and combat potion, 4 super restores, and the rest of the inventory to be filled with food. When hunting PVMers, you shouldn't have a problem outlasting them, so I like to bring about 6 to 8 brews, 2 Karambwans, and have the last few spaces filled with anglers or mantas set up in a way that I can quickly click all 3 to combo eat, so that I can get my health back up quickly and keep the pressure on, or even save my ass from an anti-PK. Before we head out from the bank, there's a few items that can be pre-potted. The small extra cost could be the difference between getting a kill or making it out alive, but each of these are completely optional. Eating an anglerfish to boost your health and using a heart to boost your magic until you brew down is always worth it. Sipping a ranging and combat potion will give you an extra dose out in the wilderness. Stamina and anti-venom plus can be sipped and replaced with an extra piece of food if you know you're going straight into a fight. Menify remedies will boost your combat stats back to their base level every 15 seconds after brewing down, lasting for 5 minutes. And lastly, extended anti-fire potions will prevent the dragonfire effect of dragonstone bolts for 12 minutes. As we head out into the wilderness, I've got a few quick tips and tricks from my experiences to give you that slight edge, starting off with multi-zones. While the bosses are in a single-way combat zone of the wilderness, you should be aware of where the multi-lands are, especially at Spindle and Calvarion, as there's always a chance of your target being in a pking clan that's ready to take your head off or even your +1 the moment you step into multi. The Wilderness Multi-Lines plugin on RuneLite is great for this, as it will cleanly show you the multi-lines in-game. Most of the time, if your target runs south into multi from Calvarion or Spindle, it won't be a multi-bait, but if they run north or east, they could have backup on the way. If I'm only risking a few mil and don't have an expensive +1, I'll usually chase them south, but it does still happen, so chase at your own risk. Also note that if your target has stood in multi for more than 10 seconds without attacking you, any other player can then interrupt and attack you even if you're in singles. Next up, the difference between regular wilderness singles and the singles plus boss layers, as well as how to deal with the NPC combat timers. While the areas are in a single way combat zone, the areas within the boss layers is singles plus, while outside it's just regular singles. What this means is that within the layers, a player may be in combat with both one player and one NPC being the boss at the same time, while outside in regular singles, a player may only be in combat with either one player or one NPC at any time. The one issue with this is that if you're last hit by the boss when chasing your target out of the lair rather than attacking your target last, the game will register you as being attacked by an NPC when now in regular singles. Meaning that for a few seconds you won't be able to attack your target without getting cucked, since any attacks will be nulled, stalling your character and allowing them to get a gap on you and get away. So if they make a run for it, just try and keep up with them for a moment before going for another freeze and finishing them off. Now for catching the bots. The main issue with the bots is that they will instantly detect PKs and run or teleport away, and if the account has completed the hard diaries, they'll no longer be affected by the teleport timer, making it almost impossible to catch a teleblock, at least in the usual way. Bots are often programmed to react to a few things such as PK skulls and players in certain PKing gear like staffs and robes. However, they won't teleport from each other or other PVMers. We can take advantage of this by using gear that doesn't trigger a response. This way you can walk right up to them, say g'day and send a teleblock. After that, they're usually a free kill. If they have automatic prayers, just swap your weapons back and forth on the tick you attack to hit them off prayer every time. The loot from the bots will never be amazing, but it will be decent as long as they have a wilderness weapon, or at least morally satisfying. And finally, how to deskull and restore your character. After each trip, you'll want to restore your stats and special attack, and while you can do this quickly at the Forex Enclave or POH pools, you can also use a little trick at the LMS portals to completely restore your character and most notably get rid of your PK skull. To do this, all you need to do is hop to an LMS world, enter the upstairs casual portal and hop to any other world. This is particularly useful when bringing an expensive +1 item, as you'll pretty rarely find some cheeky dogs camping the entrance with something like Claws or a Voidwaker waiting for people to log in and attempt to rush them out. Now with all of that out of the way, let's get into the good stuff. Located a few steps northwest of Ferox at level 20 Wilderness, surrounded by low level bears, we'll find the entrance to the lair of the Papa Bear, Artio. This boss is by far the most wild and dangerous of the three due to its unpredictability, plus its ability to send you flying into the wall, stacked with a claw to the face, all while your opponent is smacking the shit out of you. But learn to tame the bear and use him to your advantage and you'll be able to destroy absolutely anyone. Artio's main attacks consist of a ranged attack used against any player at a distance with a max hit of 18 that can be fully protected against, and a dangerous melee attack with a max hit of 35 that is guaranteed to hit and can only be slightly reduced by melee protection used against any player next to or under Artio while he constantly switches and closes in on the targeted player unless Artio is frozen in place. Artio also has a unique magic-based special attack that will send a projectile at the targeted player and if not protected against in time will launch all players next to or behind the targeted player when it lands up to 3 squares and stun them, dealing a minimum of 5 damage but will increase from 20 to 35 up to Artio's max hit of 50 depending on if and how hard the player was pushed into the walls. Though this attack can be predicted as it will always be used shortly after spawning and roughly every 25 seconds after, but only if the targeted player is outside of melee distance, meaning that if we time it well we can use this attack to our advantage and catch our opponent out with an attack aimed at us. And lastly, Artio's environment attack, the bear traps. At 66 and 33% health, Artio will enrage, releasing itself from any current freeze while beginning to spawn many traps on the floor that will damage and stun any player that stands directly on them for up to 15 damage. These can be tricky to deal with, but after a bit of practice using L movements by clicking to the side of the nearest trap in your way, you'll get the movement down. You can also run over them, which will cause them to despawn. One other thing to be aware of is that the stun from getting caught in a trap will give the player a short immunity from being frozen, which can be a little annoying at times. So putting all of that together, considering how dangerous Artio's melee attacks can be, we'll want to keep our distance as much as possible and protect from his ranged attacks while positioning ourselves well if the traps are out. Generally between our opponent and the exit but not too close to the wall so that we don't get knocked out by the magic special attack. Once you enter the layer, teleblock and entangle your target as usual, then the best strategy for gaining control is to use an entangle on Artio, which you can do if your target has stopped attacking Artio for more than 6 seconds. Ideally, we position and entangle Artio next to our target so that they start taking constant melee damage, making it easy to gain momentum. Then just keep your health high while switching protection prayers between Artio's and your opponent's attacks as much as possible while wearing their health down with attack styles opposite to Artio's before going in for a KO. Magic-based special attack weapons like the Void Waker and Volatile Nightmare Staff are king as your opponent will be praying against ranged or melee most of the time. However, a well-timed hit from a Ballista or AGS is all good. If your target is only using ranged, it's usually pretty simple just to camp protect from ranged and keep away from Artio, but players fighting back with magic can be tricky to deal with since they can hit you back with the same tactics. Though their low defense makes them super vulnerable, so it's best to play aggressively and take them out quickly. If they end up making it out of the lair, people will often either rush back through hoping to get a gap on you and get away, or just run straight south to try and make it out of the wildy. Though there are plenty of trees around giving magic users an opportunity to make a freeze escape. So just try and keep up with them for a moment and see what their plan is before catching another freeze and finishing them off. Alright, now let's break down a few kills. Once you've scouted a player, pot up, throw your prayers on and drop into the lair. Ready up your teleblock and send it as soon as possible before going for an entangle and quickly scope out your opponent's gear and level to see what you're up against. Here we've got a guy in Crystal with a bit of melee gear as well who isn't going anywhere, so we can bet this man's ready to boogie. So we'll want to take control early and take him out as soon as possible. Ideally, we catch our target while there aren't any traps out and things are chill, making it easy for us to drag Artio over to our target and freeze them together. Then we start wearing them down with magic or range before taking them out with a spec. Easy as that. However, when the traps are out, things can get a little more interesting. We TB and entangle our target as usual, then scope out the traps. Artio is already frozen, so now we start focusing on our target. We protect from magic for the special attack while getting ourselves into a decent spot away from Artio but between our target and the exit. We start switching up our attacks and wearing our target down while getting ready to catch another entangle. Here our target stood on a trap, nulling our freeze, so instead we go for Artio first and then catch them after. Now we've got full control and our target is caught in melee distance, we can really start doing some damage, as our basic magic attacks combined with Artio's melee attacks all off prayer easily melt through our target. If they're only using ranged, you should have an easy time, but if they're fighting back with magic, we'll need to be a little more careful. Here we've been frozen next to the bear, so we'll need to play things smart. We keep our HP high and use our combo food when we need to and keep pressing our target to swing momentum back in our favour. They make a mistake here and get sent by the special attack, giving us a good chance to catch them with an entangle before catching Artio next to them. At this point, all we need to do is line up a quick KO and there's nothing he can do about it. Occasionally you'll come up against someone who's really prepared to fight back, with multiple attack styles and a spec weapon ready to strike at any moment, but players with extra gear are usually risking a decent amount, so weigh up your odds and either play it safe or go in hard. Thankfully, you won't really see anyone using Vengeance here, since without freezes, you're pretty much just a free meal for the bear. But be careful if your target teleblocks you, as it is possible for them to wear your supplies down before freezing and standing under you, and then having another player come in and jump you. As always, play safe until you get a bit of momentum and then all out aggressive. Combo your attacks with Artios and line up a chance to send your specs and finish them off. On the other hand, if you're just looking for some easy kills, then taking out some bots is the way to go. Since the bots can detect PKers and instantly run or teleport, the easiest way to catch them is to head in without wearing any PKing gear, which is what triggers the response. Take a day, and if they don't budge, then we've surely got a bot on our hands. We send a teleblock, then throw on our magic gear to catch an entangle. They'll typically start running straight south, so freeze them as much as possible to give yourself as much time as possible. We start chipping away at their health, and since they've got the automatic prayers, we just swap our weapons back and forth on the tick we attack to catch them off prayer. Get ready to entangle them once again, and if you start splashing and get caught way behind, you'll either need to click ahead or click on the target as soon as you see that XP drop to keep up with them. Since they've got the automatic prayers and typically eat very well, it can be quite hard to KO them, but they're usually pretty easy to outlast. Here we're able to take out a bot 11 combat levels higher than my pure just in time before I couldn't attack it anymore. But catch one closer to or below your level and it's easy money. And speaking of money, the loot you can expect at Artio can vary quite a bit, from just a couple 100k up to a few mil, but I'd say averages somewhere around 600 to 800k. And even if they don't look like they're risking too much, you never know what kind of loot they've got on them. Out of the three bosses, Artio definitely has the highest risk versus reward, with magic users typically risking the most but also being able to make freeze escapes, and fights within the lair being by far the most dangerous, so expect the occasional death, but with a bit of experience you'll be raking it in. To give you a true feel for the average loot and PKing experience, let's send 3 kills in a row on the main account and then on my pure to see what it's like at the higher and lower combat brackets. On the main, we'll be rocking a mid-tier setup with the Voidwaker and Dragonfire Shield, a perfect setup at Artio for less than a 10 mil risk. We first hop through a few worlds to find someone we can hit, and we're on. We splash our entangle and he books it straight for the exit, but we catch him outside and start putting the pressure on. He catches a freeze, but we catch him right after. Now he's whipped out some ranged gear and has started to fight back. So we switch into our tank gear on his hits and start switching up and faking our attacks to stay on top. He's given it legs once more, but we just managed to keep up with him and catch our freeze. Then we get a big bolt and take him out with a Voidwaker spec. Let's restock our supplies and go for round 2. We splash our TB on the first guy and he gets away, hop through a couple more worlds to find a target, and here we go. He's not running, so it looks like this man's ready to throw down. We catch a freeze on each other with the bear between us as he flashes his AGS and pulls out a ballista. This man's come prepared, so we really need to be careful here. We keep our HP high while switching prayers between his and the bear's attacks as much as possible while chipping away and waiting for our chance. Since we've just been locked in Artio's melee distance for a while, we can bet the bear is ready to send out a special attack, so we run in and catch him with it, sending him flying for a 50. He dips out, but we follow with the Void Waker ready, unlucky to not take him out with our specs, but we keep pressing him. Since he's sitting in his robes, we start absolutely shredding him and combo him out before he gets the chance to make an escape. Good fight, mate. Let's reset and get this last kill. This time we managed to catch someone on the first attempt. He makes a run for it but gets caught in a trap, though this ends up nulling our entangle and he makes it out shortly after. We keep on him as he starts auto-retaliating, so we drag him away from the entrance before we go for our freeze. We end up splashing as he starts to head south, but looks like he's all out of food, making this one light work. Now let's check out these keys. Alright, 1.1 mil from the first guy, 2.3 mil from the anti-PKer, and a humble 600k from the last. 4 mil for about 15 minutes work, that's pretty damn good. A bit more than average, but we did have to put in work for the first two. Now let's do it all again on the pure. This time we've got the Abyssal Dagger and Volatile Nightmare Staff with the Occult Amulet for a little extra magic boost. The first person we catch heads straight out of the room, but looks like he's just panicking as he struggles to out-eat our damage, and we take him out quickly with a cheeky combo. And on to the next one. We catch our TB, but is straight out of the exit, and we catch him just outside. His behavior and the way he's eating and attacking back at the same time seems a little suspicious to me, so I think we've got a bot here. They're camping protect from ranged, so we just spam fire surges while hiding behind the trees to reduce the speed and damage of his webweaver bow. We start splashing like a damn Magikarp before we finally catch them and start getting some nice damage from our surges before we catch him one last time and drop him with the dagger. 2 down, 1 to go. Our target has just killed the bear as we TB them, which is perfect for us. We check their loot, just some gems, now let's get down to business. They're keen for a fight, but we get the upper hand early and go for a KO, but don't quite get the damage to take them out here. Now the bear is respawned, the fight is really on. We play it safe and freeze Artio as soon as we can and then catch our target next to him. We eat up to full HP before sipping our ranged and combat potions because although he's only hitting back with the web weaver so far, we've always got to be ready for them to have a spec weapon. We catch a freeze on our opponent once more and wind up a dagger spec while Artio comes in and takes him out. Now let's see what we've got here. 500k for the first kill, 650k for the second, and 300k for the third, about 1.5 mil. Pretty standard mid-level loot, mostly Ethereum boss drops, a little less than average, but again that only took us about 15 minutes. So that was about 6 mil an hour on the pure and 16 mil an hour on the main, but with the occasional failed attempts you can average somewhere around 6 to 8 mil an hour. But of course the best loots come from the PKers themselves. And what better way is there to cap off a PKing video than a couple of real fights. Here we've gone into Artio for just a regular PK on the pure, but we've just so happened to drop in on another PKer as he's taking out someone else. We follow them out as they run back to Ferox, but they don't teleport away, so we send a TB. Then we catch an entangle on each other and the fight is on. We get some nice RNG to start off, and as soon as we're unfrozen we go in for an AGS spec, but they get Protect melee on, so we hold off on the Gmaul. But all the momentum is in our favour as they start to head south. He switches back on the run and goes for an anti-stack, but we see it coming and put our Protect on. Now we're back in the struggle. We start switching up our attack patterns and hit them with some fakies as we take back control of the fight. We've done a fair bit of damage now, so we start distancing ourselves away from the trees to make it harder for him to escape. He tries to stand under us, but we catch him before he can, and now we've really got him on the ropes. No luck with our AGS spec. He catches another freeze and looks like he's going for the underlog, but we plant some pretty little flowers and he comes through with the fertilizer as he starts to shit himself when we catch another freeze. He's still got a bit of food left and manages to catch us back and could have got the escape here, but goes for the Hail Mary DDS and it doesn't quite pay off. He goes for the underlog but doesn't have enough time. We almost blow it with the splash and the staff bash, but we catch the crucial last freeze and finish him off. He's not happy, but I am. 2 keys for our troubles. We get 5.2 mil from the PKR and a cheeky 200k'er on top. Over on the main, as we were hopping through worlds, we dropped in on a fella doing a little bit of Void Waker rushing. They get a hit on a PVMer before we manage to catch them, but we hit the logout button to send us back to the entrance and wait around to see if he comes back. Surely enough, they rock up again and we just manage to get our TB off as they notice us. They go for an early spec, but we catch our freeze and start chipping away. They send it into the lair and try to gap us with the vengeance, but we break it with our freeze and now we've got them right where we want them. They get launched by Artio's magic attack as we go in with the dagger, but we get nothing but noodles. Now they've started fighting back, we drag them in deeper before we go for our freeze while the other homie is dealing with Artio. Now that the traps have spawned, we make sure to keep ourselves in a decent spot and eat up whenever Artio is unfrozen. We catch another freeze on our opponent while Artio comes in and smacks them before the other beast finishes him off and dips. Then we finally get some big RNG on a bolt proc and finish them off with a Void Waker spec. We pinch the extra loot and make sure not to die on your way out. Now let's check out this key. What do we get? A cheeky 7mm loot? Don't mind if I do. And that wraps up part 1 of how to PK at the Big 3 Wilderness Singles bosses. Hit the like button and drop a sub if you enjoyed the content, and stay tuned for part 2 and 3 for Calvarion and Spindle, where we get straight into the action. Peace.